Greetings to you from the great state of North Carolina. I love North Carolina. I've visited many other places, and I love exactly where God's got me to. I brag on North Carolina. Lovely place, but it's turning out to be a beautiful day here in North Carolina. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Jeff Cloud. I'm with Crossroads Reentry Ministries. We are a 501c3 charitable organization. Think Salvation Army, Goodwill. There's many other popular charities. We are a charitable organization. We're not as big as they are, but we are a charitable organization, a 501c3. We exist for no other reason than to come into prisons and jails and help people leave behind the incarceration lifestyle. We help them on the inside and we help them on the outside when they get out to make it such that they don't get back into prisons or jails. How do we do that? We do that by helping with any God-honored need other than the big L, which is legal, because we're not lawyers, but any God-honored need. Last year, my phone number, which by the way is 704-499-1332. I'll say that again, 704-499-1332. I got several hundred calls from people just out of jail/prison. We work with thousands on the inside, and several hundred call when they got out. Roughly half of the phone calls that came in, Mr. Cloud, I need a job. And we help people get out of jail or prison with a job, because that's a huge need that people have to make it on the outside. Third of the calls that come in, Mr. Cloud, I need a safe, sober place to stay. The other sixth of the calls that come in, Mr. Cloud, I need to know where this AA or NA meeting is. I need help getting my IDs. Any kind of need that you can think of that somebody has out there to make it on the outside, that other sixth of the calls includes those. So there's literally dozens, if not more, of needs that are being met through that. Now, I want to spend the first 15 minutes or so of this DVD, which by the way is Sobriety Part 1. Sobriety Part 1, talking a little bit about me so you'll understand me. I've already introduced you a little bit to Crossroads Reentry Ministries, which by the way, our post office box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28070. Again, Huntersville, it's in post office box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28070. That's near Charlotte, North Carolina. We're doing a series of DVDs. We have multiple tracks. For example, we have a track called A Job and The Job. It is 5 DVDs. How to get a job coming out of jail or prison, and then how to walk into the job, which we call the calling that God may have for you in your life. 5 DVDs. This series or track is on sobriety. It will have 8 DVDs. This is part 1, or the first DVD of sobriety. I believe all of us understand sobriety is critical to staying out of jail or prison. I'll talk a little bit about myself, but I've been sober roughly 20 years now, but prior to that, I was a practicing alcoholic and drug user for over 20 years, and I had a couple dozen arrests. Now, I can ask you the question, he's been sober 20 years, Jeff Cloud's been sober a little over 20 years. How many times has he been arrested since he's been sober? Goose egg. 2 dozen before, he got sober, he gets sober, 0 cents. Statistics don't lie, and I see it all the time. Sobriety is a key to staying out of jail and prison. And so that's what this whole DVD track is. How do we get and stay sober, basically? And we're going to be primarily focused on what's called the 12 steps of a reentry program, even though we're going to throw a lot more for sobriety into that. Now, I've already introduced you a little bit to the organization, but I want to introduce you a little bit more to me so you can understand where is this man coming from. I think a lot of times if we understand where the man comes from, we can understand the help that he brings better. I and I'm going to talk from a sobriety standpoint. I grew up in a house where my mom and my dad weren't together. I was the only kid in the mid-1960s in my first grade class who didn't have mom and daddy living at home together, and of course them being married to each other. So immediately something was a little different, quote unquote, about me. The rest of these kids, they got mom and daddy coming, mine are divorced, they're not together. It felt rough down inside of me. My mom, single mom, practicing alcoholic. What do most single moms do if they're alcoholics or addicts? They bring in a spiritually sick man into the house, and of course my mom did that as well too. Here's who she brought in. A man who was a machine gunner in Korea. He had killed thousands. You say, whoa, thousands? Here's what most people don't know about the Korean War. South Korea, we fought, Americans fought on their side against the North Koreans. Chinese were on the North Korean side. America has all the weaponry, firepower, latest guns, battleships, planes, jets, etc. Bombs, everything, big weaponry, great weaponry. Chinese on their side, little or no weaponry, but about 2 million soldiers, where America had about 200,000. Now, if you do the numbers, they had 10 times the soldiers we did. And here's their philosophy. If we run the Americans out of bullets, we can club them to death, beat them to death, whatever the case may be. And that's how they tried to fight. So this man ran a machine gun, shot a machine gun. He didn't have to stop killing humanity when the Chinese would put wave after wave across from him of humanity. He would simply, and there'd be another man feeding his machine gun buckets of bullets. He had to stop, not because of running out of bullets. He had to stop because the head on his machine gun started getting so hot it would blister his cheeks. That's when he had to start killing humanity. So he probably killed thousands, and here that man is a practicing alcoholic up in my house with my single mom who's a practicing alcoholic. You can imagine the demons that were there up in my house for my first years of life, really 0 to 18 kind of thing. Well, so what went on was basically this, 0 to 10, I'm saying I ain't going to be like that. These people are nuts, this is bad, alcoholism's bad, drug use is bad, cigarettes are bad, I'll never do it. 0 to 10, I'm in it. Somewhere around late 10, early 11 years old, the enemy's message comes. Jeff Cloud, this would have been about 70, 71, the hippie movement was coming in. People are smoking doobies back then. Today we call them blunts, but back then, doobies, and they were saying things like groovy and peace, and I'd see the cute little female, 15 years old, up at the playground. She was with the hippie, long hair. She's got beads in her hair. She's got a shirt that's hiked up to here, showing her little figure down through here. Oh, and what the enemy was telling me was, Jeff Cloud, smoke the dope like they're doing, drink the alcohol like they're doing, the hippies guys are, and you'll get the hippie women. I bought into his lie. He told me this was going to be good. He didn't tell me I'd head down a path of 20-something years of alcoholism and end up at 33 years old in alcoholism with a ton of arrest, and just to sum it up in a nutshell, passing out, peeing all over myself so much that the uric acid in my urine ate the lining out of my sofa. And boom, the lining fell out on the floor. Now, that tells you a little bit about Jeff Cloud. Of course, what went on with that lifestyle? A couple of dozen arrests. I'd gotten my first DUI the year here in North Carolina we could get our driver's license, 16. Subsequently, I ended up, I think, getting 4 DUIs, and you know as well as I do, I drove drunk thousands of times, but only got caught 4 times. But I got 4 DUIs, and it was amazing in 1988 that here in this county, Mecklenburg County, the Charlotte area of North Carolina, they did this to me when I went to court. Judge sits there, and back in that day, they didn't have all these computers where they could print out all your record immediately and have a copy of it. Here's how you had to get your record. Here's what he basically told me. Mr. Cloud, this is your 4th DUI. We're going to do an assessment on you. It's going to work in your benefit. Less jail time, less prison time, less punishment. if you contact every county that you've been arrested in and get your arrest conviction record. And it'll take you about 6 weeks if you write them next week for it to come back in from each county. Therefore, I'm going to set our court date next one out and postponing it for about 3 months. So he said, I want 2 copies. I want you to bring one back to me and one go to an assessment place that's going to do an alcohol assessment on you. So I did that, got all those copies back of all those arrests. I had to write 6 or 8 counties and da-da-da-da-da-da. And here they come back in. I keep one set for the judge. I give the other set about the 6-week, 8-week mark. And I give that to the person who's doing the assessment at the local treatment center. They do professional assessments to see if this person's alcoholic or not. I'll never forget that woman sitting there. She'd read 3 or 4 arrests. First DUI, and she would say, describe what went on in those. And every one of them I'd be saying stories like, well, we were drinking here and this happened, or this arrest. And then we were drinking here. And she said, Mr. Cloud, said, of those 5 arrests or whatever it was, every single one of them you mentioned there was drinking involved and that you were drinking. Is there a correlation between your arrest and your drinking? What does she mean? Well, let's move on to this second set of arrests, and she had listed about 4 or 5 or 6 more. Second DUI packed me in on it at the end, and she was trying to get me to see I had a problem with alcohol and my abuse of alcohol, and that I was an alcoholic. 1988, no way in my mind I'm an alcoholic. She went through a series of about 4 waves of this. 4, 5, 6, 7 arrests, capped off by one of those DUIs. And her next question, Mr. Cloud, do you think that you got a problem with alcohol? Trying to get me to see it. She got to that last one and she said, Mr. Cloud, a normal social drinker don't get 4 DUIs. I believe you're an alcoholic, don't you believe? And I'm sitting there thinking the audacity of this woman to think me of all people is an alcoholic. The audacity of this woman to think that me of all people is an alcoholic. Whew, I was in denial big time. But 5 more years of alcoholism beat me to a pulp, and the pain was tremendous. I was bankrupt spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. All my relationships were bad, and my alcohol wasn't working anymore. I could drink, but it just wasn't doing what it did at first. And that's the way the enemy always works. It's kind of like that baited hook that might catch a brim in a pond. It looks good, it smells good, it even tastes good at first for about 1/10 of a second, then it sets, and that brim's getting pulled out of the water to his death. That's the way the enemy's way always works. He made that alcohol look good, and them drugs look good up front. But eventually he set the hook, and it was very painful. 1993, rock bottom. I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I grabbed the program of Alcoholics Anonymous like it was a life preserver. Now, back in 1988, I was supposed to go to 12 meetings as court ordered. But remember, I was in denial. I didn't think I had a problem. So, here's how I did my 12 court-ordered meetings. I went to 4 of them, then I realized there was no phone numbers on those sheets they were getting. There was no accountability. The sheets that were having me signed at the AA meeting. So I called up 8 of them or 10 of my drinking buddies. Come on over. All you got to do is sign this sheet. John S. Delta Group, 8 p.m. Tuesday night or whatever the case is. And they came over and signed the rest of them, and I turned that in AA, in 88. If you get the picture, I was a poster child in 88 how not to be an AA member. Then in 1993, I'd had enough pain. I became a poster child of how to be an AA member. And I grabbed it like a life preserver with everything they had. To this day, I still personally don't know of anybody who went through the steps quicker than I did. In my first 4 months of sobriety, working with a sponsor, I went through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I know, of course, step 1, we take 100%. The rest of the steps, we continue to work the rest of our lives. True. But I went through the first time working steps with a sponsor in about 4 months. Why? I knew those steps would get me out of that pain, and it would get me into sobriety because I believed what the people had to say. Now, you know, and I know, that is a testimony. Let's fast forward from 1993. Today I have over 20 years sobriety. I've been married 17 years, me being faithful to my wife, her being faithful to me. We have a 14-year-old daughter, a 12-year-old daughter. Many people would consider me very much a success, being the founder and executive director of an organization that's doing things as powerful as Crossroads Reentry Ministries. And I'll just tell you the truth, I'll be honest with you. I don't know of a single person who has a more blessed life than I do. I'm not bragging on me, I'm bragging on what God's done for me as I've tried to walk His path. We don't walk that path perfectly, but we can walk that path in general, going down the path He wants. Every now and then I'll veer a little bit. He has to correct me minorly, but that's way better than what was going on in my other life. I was walking opposite of His path when I was an alcoholic and partial drug user secondary to that. I was walking opposite of His, and He had to spank me hard. It was like hitting a mule with a 2x4. Wow! And yes, it hurt. Bam! When I hit rock bottom. And as He turned me towards that walk with Him. But 20 years of sobriety, I always get a kick out of this. When I was first sober, the old timers around here used to say, keep coming back, it keeps getting better. And I'm sitting there, my second year, thinking, no way can it get better, it's already great. Sure enough, third year better than second year, fourth year, and about year 10, I realized these old timers weren't lying to me. It keeps getting better. Here I am in year 21, and I'm just going to be honest with you. In my opinion, I've got the best life of anybody I know out there, period, bar none. Of any person I know. And old timers have told me, keep coming back, it keeps getting better. I go to about 1 AA meeting a week now. I went to 90, but 90 is what they call it. And we'll talk more about that in some of the latter DVDs. But suffice it to say, I've been there and I've done it. I've been there and I've done it. A couple dozen arrests, rock bottom of alcoholism. Now he's 20 years sober, and most people would consider him a success spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. Successful husband, successful father, successful person who runs a ministry by the name of Crossroads Reentry Ministries. I want to camp a little bit on this correlation of staying sober and staying arrest free. Stay sober, stay out. Stay sober, stay out of jail. Stay sober, stay out of prison. Stay sober, stay out of arrest. Stay sober, stay out of arrest. As I mentioned earlier, Jeff Cloud, 0 arrests since he got sober. The closest thing I've had to a brush with the law was basically many years ago, maybe 10. These DVDs are being filmed in 2014, so let's make it 2004 approximately. I was 10 years sober then. I'd started doing volunteer work as a chaplain in the Mecklenburg County Jail. It was a Saturday evening, 7 o'clock. I'd get a call from the jail folks. They say, Mr. Cloud, we got a man who is suicidal. He needs somebody, clergy, to talk with him immediately. Please, can you come down? We've tried some of the other chaplains. They're not there. Now, I was doing volunteer chaplain work 20 hours a week. Now, I think they had paid 3 or 4 chaplains. They couldn't get up with any of those. I said, yes, I can come down because of the critical nature and talk to this man. I said, where should I park? They said, Mr. Cloud, park out on the street in front of the jail. It's Saturday evening, be no problem. I did exactly what the law authority said. And of course, when I came out after talking to that man 45 minutes, you know what was on the windshield. A parking ticket. Now, I didn't spend no 12 hours to fight a $25 parking ticket, because here in North Carolina, that's not an arrest. That is what's called a citation. It's not an arrest. But my point being, that's the biggest brush I have with the law, and if you catch that, I was doing what the law told me to do. I can live with that, no problem. But before, back in the day, plenty of those. Now, that is the importance of staying sober. So staying sober is critical. As a matter of fact, I talk about a chair many times of 4 major needs a person has to stay out of jail, prison. One of the legs on that chair, so that their life doesn't collapse back into the old life, that they're going to have in place is sobriety. The other three are spirituality, a job, and a safe, sober place to stay. So you got sobriety, one major need. Spirituality, their relationship with God, better be in place or they're going to collapse. Number three, a job, or else their life's going to collapse back into that old state. And number four, a safe, sober place to stay. But suffice it to say, staying sober is key to staying arrest or incarceration free. Now, what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that'll kind of set the stage for these DVDs. Let me talk a second about a basic definition of an alcoholic addict. Basic definition of an alcoholic addict. The enemy, Satan, Lucifer, devil, enemy, whatever you want to call him, he wants three things: kill, steal, and destroy us. He's got those three things as his mission, but what he loves for us as alcoholics and addicts to do is this, is always set the definition of an alcoholic or addict slightly below where we are. Therefore, we're not an alcoholic addict. How'd that work with me? In 1993, my last year of drinking, I'm peeing all over myself, passing out due to blackouts, alcohol, blah, 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 waking up on the sofa, linings eating out on the floor, bam, it's hit the floor. And what's the enemy telling me? You're not an alcoholic because alcoholics live in boxes up under the bridge. I was in a house, at a sofa. Now, if you catch that, he was giving me a faulty definition of an alcoholic. Here's what I believe 12-step program definition is of alcoholism, addict, and I believe normal people would agree with this definition of an alcoholic or an addict. I keep it simple. Here's the definition. After taking the first, we're off to the races. Crack. After smoking that first $10 rock, we're off to the races. We might smoke 27 miles one night. Finally get some sleep 3 days later. Whatever the case may be, after smoking 82 $10 rocks, we're off to the races. Me as an alcoholic, it would be taking a beer. 18 years old, drinking. I think at 18 years old, one time in 36 hours, I drank 72 beers. I passed out on the beach. They wrote, I eat, and I'm going to say feces, on my back in black magic marker while I was passed out. So people were going up down the beach, and near Myrtle Beach was a very popular beach. Bunches of people come down there all over the beach. They're looking to see a man passed out on the beach all day. Of course, I got sunburned, but on his back was I eat and the bad word for feces written on my back in black magic marker. Here he is passed out, but he drank 72 beers in 36 hours. After I started, at 18 I could do that. 30s, the body was starting to go down bad. But an alcoholic, addict, it doesn't matter. Whatever our drug of choice is, heroin, got to have another fix. One fix ain't enough. I got to come back. Once we take that first one, we're off to the races. So what is the key to, of course, avoid the first one? But that is the definition. It has nothing to do where we live, what color we are, how much money we got, who our mama is. Has nothing to do with that. Here's the basic definition again of an alcoholic or an addict. Basically, a person, whatever drug of choice they're using, alcohol or a drug, could be pain pills, whatever the case may be, after taking the first one, they're off to the races. That describes Jeff Cloud going all the way back probably to 11, 12, 13 years old, because I was an alcoholic even back at that age. Now, alcoholic or addict, basic definition. After we take that first one, we're off to the races. And for the most part, we can't stop. Not that we can't stop in an emergency. Mama dies, maybe I could stop at the third beer. Oh no, you got to go to the hospital and check out her body. You know, yeah, something maybe that big, that might could have stopped me. But most part, nothing was going to stop me after I started my drink. First drink, boom, led to the second drink, led to the third drink, led to the fifth drink, led to the 18th drink, led to blackout. I don't even know how many I drank there, didn't know what I did the night before, etc., so on and so forth. So that is the basic definition of an alcoholic or an addict if we keep it simple. After taking the first one, we're off to the races. And you know what I mean when I say off to the races. Alcoholics and addicts, we know what we mean. We know what we mean. I want to take a few minutes and touch base with you about gateway drugs or drink. Now the world says many things are fine out there. The world, pain pills are fine. And pain pills are fine if you're using them only for pain, the way a doctor prescribes them after having something that there is going to be a lot of pain. That's what they were intended for. But to use them to get high? How does the enemy work? Here's how he works. I call it the frog in the pot syndrome. Now many people don't know this, but if you were to take a pot of water and let's put it under normal cold water in a faucet, let's make that water 70 degrees Fahrenheit. We put that water in a big old pot and we put that pot on the stove, on the eye burner of a stove, and we put in a frog into the pot. Then we cut on the burner wide open. What will happen is that water will go from 70 degrees, a minute later it's 72, 73, a minute later 76, 77, you start to get the picture. Sooner or later it starts boiling just a little bit. Then it goes rolling, boiling. Finally it's 212, steam's coming off. But here's what's interesting. That frog that we put in the pot will never jump out. Why? Because it's very little increments and he doesn't associate, it's getting hot, I got to get out of here, or this is hot, this is bad, let me get out. Now, if we took that same pot of water, 70 degrees, put it on the burner, crank the burner wide open, let the water start boiling first, then drop the frog in the pot, he will immediately jump out. He may be scalded, but he will jump out immediately. Now where are you going with this, Jeff Cloud? The enemy uses the same tactic. He likes to crank things up just 1 degree imperceivably at a time. Here's how he'll do it with gateway drugs. There ain't nothing wrong with a little doobie, or that's what it was called back in my day, or today a blunt. Doesn't really hurt you. It's a gateway. Where does it lead to? Once we open the gate, the enemy can come on into our city. So a man, me for example, start with a doobie. Then what the enemy says, okay, well you see that wasn't so bad. They talked about how bad drugs were. How about a little cocaine, either powder or crack? Get my stem, smoke my crack. See, that wasn't bad. You didn't roll over and die. That's what the enemy says. What's he doing? He's cranking that up just a degree at a time. He's already got you in the pot because you came in through the gateway drug. Came in through the gateway drug. Back here it was marijuana. Doobie, blunt, move into cocaine. Next thing a man's firing up heroin, meth, the whole gamut. And we know where those lead. Overdose, heroin, dead, boom, enemy's got him. Just like the frog boiled to death in the pot. Just like that frog boiled to death in the pot. So you see, for example, you've got the gateway drugs and drinks. How does it work with alcohol? Everybody can drink beer. There's nothing wrong with drinking a couple beers watching the game. That's maybe true. But for Jeff Cloud as an alcoholic, he can't drink one, because if he drinks one, he's off to 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. Blackout, etc., so on and so forth. And of course, people who start off with just a beer or two generally will move to wines and liquors. In many cases, get the liquors stronger. 190 mile an hour, we call it down here in North Carolina. That means 190 proof, 180 proof. Every now and then they'll make a rum, 180 proof, 90% alcohol. Drinking that kind of stuff. Where did we start out with? The 3% alcohol beer. See, the enemy loves gateway. He loves gateway. He loves the frog in the pot syndrome. When you've been sober, you see many of his tactics. You see how they work in your own life. You see how they work in other people's lives. And through God's grace of the wisdom that he gives, you see how to avoid it in our own life. One of the things I do, I avoid the first drink. Don't drink the first one. I ain't going to drink the second one. What helped me tremendously to avoid the first drink when I first got sober? Alcoholics Anonymous, a 12-step program, spirituality, surrounding myself with the winners. We're going to talk a lot about that kind of thing as well too. We'll talk a lot about that kind of thing as well too. As a matter of fact, that's a good lead-in to our next one. To get and stay sober, we want to surround ourselves with the winners. Surround ourselves with the winners. I went to NC State about the same years that Michael Jordan went to the University of North Carolina. Those two colleges were located only 20 miles apart, still are of course, Raleigh and Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Michael Jordan went on to win a national championship in college. Great player when he was finishing up at North Carolina. Great player, and the world was starting, the sports world was starting to see Michael Jordan can slap move. He can jam it, he can lay it up, he can get away quick, throw up some shots. What many people don't know about Michael Jordan was this. In my opinion, and I think others that knew and saw his sports career would say this. In my opinion, at about the age of 25, Michael Jordan was the best that he ever was athletically. Now, he did get more experience, say by 30 years old, and experience started offsetting his athletic ability that started to just minorly decrease. His experience increased it back up. So he's a great player at 25, he's a great player at 30. But my point is this. At 25, great player, Michael Jordan, had played 3 seasons with the Chicago Bulls, and they had not had a winning season all 3. Do you catch that? My opinion, 25 years old, he's the greatest player on the face of the planet, and he ain't even got any winning seasons. Why? Basketball is a team sport. Now, what happened? Down the line, you had the greatest player, Michael Jordan, and the pieces started coming in. A Scottie Pippen, a Dennis Rodman, a Ben Cartwright, a John Paxson, a Coach Phil Jackson. Those pieces came in. What happened? He was surrounded with the winners. It's the same way in sobriety. For us to be a champion, we've got to surround ourselves with the winners. You know, if you wanted to be a millionaire, and let's move back to 18 years old, and we got us a good outlook, and we're going to become a millionaire, and we really got a lot of wisdom. Here's what we would say. I want to become a millionaire. How should I become a millionaire? Let's say that there's a group out there, 2 groups that exist. One of them's a group of people, and in that group, one man's car got repossessed this morning. Another man lost his house last week due to foreclosure. Third man in that group, he's sitting there with so much debt on his credit cards, he will never get out. You get the picture? That's one group. Here's a second group. It's a group of millionaires. And they became millionaires many different ways. One through a business, one through investing in stocks, another one through some great invention, whatever the case may be. But they're a group of millionaires. The question would become, if you wanted to become a millionaire, which group were you going to hang out with? Well, Mr. Cloud, that's easy. I sure ain't going to hang out with all the people who are broke and in debt. That would be stupid. Yes, it would. I'd go hang out with the millionaires. Who else to better hang around with when you want to get and stay sober than people who have gotten and stayed sober? I'm now 20 years sober. I'm considered an old timer in the rooms. When I first came in, I was a newcomer. But I kept staying in the 12-step program. For me, it happened to be Alcoholics Anonymous. But 12-step program, I stayed in this 12-step program, and by God's grace, I stayed sober one step at a time. And I still go. And I let that be sobriety for me, connecting with those millionaires to become a millionaire. Connect with the sober people. Now, what that did look like? Find you a group, and there's many of them. AA, NA, there's a Celebrate Recovery type thing. These are people who have gotten and stayed sober. And I believe if we surround ourselves with the winners, we will stay sober. Now, the winners, what we find out is this. The winners also in life. If I surround myself with my old buddies who are getting arrested all the time, guess what's going to happen to me? I'm going to get arrested. Back into the cop car, head down, we know the routine. But if I surround myself with the winners, winners being people who are successful in life, successful business people, successful people in the spiritual, successful people who have raised their children right or best that we'll see here in humanity. Those are the people I want to surround myself with, because just like Michael Jordan, here's what we learn. If we don't, we're going to be losers. That third season, end of that third season, Michael Jordan's going, man, I'm playing my heart out. He's talking to the management of the Chicago Bulls. We need to get some people around me. There's pieces. And oh, by the way, let me tell you about this Dennis Rodman guy. He looks crazy as a loon, but what I see is this. He's getting 7 rebounds a game, and he's not even positioning himself correctly under the basket. He's positioning himself so that if you're where the ball's coming off of, he's turned sideways, he's not blocking out but about a foot. If he would do what Dean Smith taught us, boom, he's like that. He blocks out 6 feet. He'll double the amount of rebounds he'll get. And then Michael started talking about others whom he knew could be potential pieces of that team to win the championship. And you need to be on the lookout for those winners, I call it, that are out there. Sobriety, if I want to get and stay sober, let's go into one of those 12-step recovery programs. Spirituality, I want that to help me get and stay sober, stay out of jail. I look to spiritual groups where I can glean from those who have been there and done it successfully, just like the millionaires. I go sit my butt in the chairs of the millionaires meeting and I listen to what they say, and I start putting into my memory bank, my brain, what I hear over and over again. In the millionaires, here's what I would hear over and over again. Don't go in debt. It's a fool's game. None of them went in debt. That's what they would testify to. I didn't go in debt. I avoided debt like the plague. I realized debt made money and interest work against me, whereas investment makes it work for me. Different ball game. All right. Another thing that they did, I had a nest egg when I first started building my money up, or whatever the case may be. 3 months worth of living expenses. That way, if the transmission went down, it didn't throw me into total chaos financially. Bam, I'd hear every single one of them say that. So what am I starting to get? Steps on how to be a millionaire. Step 1, avoid debt. Step 2, have a nest egg of 3 months of expenses. You kind of get the picture. I listen to all those things and implement them that these millionaires have done in my life. Guess what? I become a millionaire. Might take a while, but I become a millionaire. Same thing in a program of recovery. We go to a program of recovery, a 12-step program, and we surround ourselves with the winner. We start hearing things like this. Go to 90 meetings in 90 days when you're first sober. It sounds like a lot. That's what I did. It worked, and I got sober, because what them old timers know is we used to bomb our mind with the, I call it running the game. Alcoholism, drug addiction, the criminal lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. We bomb our mind with all the stuff. Our songs tell us what to do. You know, go out there and, in my case, rock and roll music. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. They were talking about sex outside of marriage. They were talking about drugs, and they weren't saying taking aspirin when you get a headache. You know what it was saying. And oh, by the way, play our rock and roll again. So you're bombing your mind with our message. Boom. Same thing. We bombed our mind with the message of the world and the enemy. When we get sober, we got to bomb our mind with the right message of how to get and stay sober and have a relationship with God. So you start to see that. Surround yourselves with the winners. Surround yourselves with the winners. We can do that. We can look out amongst society, wherever we are. We can go to the 12-step recovery programs. We can pick out, for me, for example, a church. This is a blessing. The church where we're currently filming this. I'm a member of this church, been going for a few years, and I just simply called and said it would be great if we could film with a nice blackboard, podium in the background, blah, blah, blah. And the church said, by all means, Mr. Cloud, we'll set it up and we'll set them aside for you. See, that's great network. I've got winners. I didn't have to go work a whole lot of time to find this place. But if we do that, we surround ourselves with the winners. It's kind of like having a great network or a great team, as a Michael Jordan would. All right. So, what we've looked at so far, I gave you the introduction earlier. We've looked at the correlation to staying sober, staying out. We've looked at the basic definition of an alcoholic addict. We've looked at gateway drugs. We've looked at surround ourselves with the winner. And what I'd like to finish up with in the last 10 minutes or so today is the purpose of, say, an Alcoholics Anonymous or a Narcotics Anonymous. The purpose of an Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Great organizations have understandable missions or purposes. Crossroads Reentry Ministries. We have a purpose or a mission, if you will, to help people leave behind that incarceration lifestyle. Boom! Pretty straightforward and simple. Purpose or mission. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. Basically two major purposes. Get sober and help others to get sober. Get sober and help others to get sober. That's their purpose. Now, I want to read to you the purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous. And many of you will be familiar with this if you've ever been to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, because many times it's read in what's called the preambles, or the first part of the meeting, the first 5 minutes or so. Sometimes read at the end. Some meetings maybe not read, but here's basically what it says. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So that NA might put a desire to stop using. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose, here it is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Did you catch that? Alcoholics Anonymous basically has sobriety as the umbrella purpose, and it's broken up into two components under the umbrella. To stay sober and to help others to stay sober as well too, or to achieve sobriety. Now if you catch that, that's a pretty simple mission statement for an organization. To get sober and to help others to get sober as well too. Now, when you're part of an organization that is focused on their mission, whatever that may be, and that's what they're about, and that's only what they're about, they get good. That's like us at Crossroads. We are focused on helping people leave behind the incarceration lifestyle. We are very good at helping people who do the legwork get a job coming out of jail or prison with a big old record. Now, could we be good at helping somebody without a record get a job? You better believe it. But if somebody calls me and they're not coming out of jail or prison, I basically many times try to avoid it. Tell them, hey, I'll give you the answer, but don't tell anybody else about this, because I'm specifically called, our organization specifically called to help people coming out of jail or prison. If we leave that purpose, we'll go down in what we're supposed to do. Let me give you an example of what I mean. If all the people in America started calling Crossroads who needed a job, boo, phone wouldn't stop ringing. Boo, crash goes Crossroads. Why? We would leave our original mission or purpose. Great organizations realize their mission or purpose. One organization you've heard of has been around a ton of time, Harley-Davidson. Its mission statement, something like this, and I know I may not get it exactly right, but here's the basic point of it. Harley-Davidson exists to produce motorcycles and motorcycle products the best worldwide. So Harley-Davidson exists to produce the best motorcycles and motorcycle-related products worldwide. That's their mission. The workers that are there, they know what their mission is. Any clients that are potentially buying from Harley-Davidson, boom, they know what they're about. The CEO, executive director, bam, he knows exactly where that company's supposed to be going. They don't build telephone poles. They don't do electrical companies. They don't do cars. Boom, they know what their mission is and they stick to it. And that's what these good 12-step programs stick to. Sobriety, help the individual get sober, and then hopefully that individual will help others to get sober as well too. What happens when we help others is we really get a whole lot of purpose into it. So we come into a 12-step program to get sober. We hang around. Why is Jeff Cloud going to 12-step recovery programs at 20 years sober? I still go about one meeting a week, but I do go in and teach substance abuse pods in prisons and jails and DVDs like this. But the main thing is I go to one AA meeting a week per se, one 12-step recovery program meeting per week. And part of what goes on is I'm sitting there, somebody could ask me the question, Jeff Cloud, do you think you could stay sober the rest of your life without going to a 12-step recovery program? Absolutely. Would my life be as good and would the lives around me be as good? Not at all. And here's what I mean by that. I get so much by giving away to others. I've gotten to the point in my sobriety now, 20 years, I look out there and I see some people 14, 12, 10 years sober, 5 years sober that I sponsored when they first came through. I see them giving it out, sponsoring others. I get to see the growth in their life, how they become the person God wants them to, which they can't do if they stay drunk and or doped up. It ain't gonna happen. But I get the power of seeing that happen in their lives and realize I got to join God in some major work in their lives, and I really like that. It gives me purpose and fulfillment in life, and it'll do the same for you as well too. That's the purpose of why I'm hanging around at 20 years sober. To go back in and share, here's my experience, strength, and hope. And that's another thing that 12-step program, 12-step programs will do. The people in there aren't telling you, you got to do this and you got to do that. We've heard that all our life. You need to stop doing alcohol, man, you're drunk. You need to quit doing that dope. You're messing everybody in the family's life up. We've heard that over and over and over again. We come into Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Those that are sober and gotten sober realize we need to help other people get and stay sober. And one of the ways we don't do it is, you got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got to do that. We realize that we share our experience, strength, and hope. Here's what I did. Here's what worked for me to get and stay sober. Here's what's working today. Our experience, strength, and hope. It'd be like the millionaires sitting around in the room. They don't tell you what you got to do. Hey, young 18-year-old, you got to do this and you got to do that. They just basically say, hey, here's what I did to become a millionaire. You want it? Take it and implement it in your life. You don't? Whatever. What we figured out is when we listened to other people who were millionaires before us and we implemented what they had to say, we became millionaires. Same way with sobriety. That's why the old timers hang around, because we realize giving it away is an insurance card to staying sober, yes. But giving it away is so much pleasure in life, to see other people's lives. I can just think back real quick, the guy got sober about 3 years ago. Him and his wife about to bust up, and then now I see his pictures on Facebook. He's 3 years sober. They've had a second child. You can tell the family is very much more together. He's an active dad. He's an active member of the 12-step program, doing a lot of good stuff in life. He's got his own business. It's going well. Being a good dad, being a good husband, being a good provider, being a good person in society who helps make society better. That's a beautiful thing to see. And that's many times what we're trying to do in getting sober and helping others to achieve sobriety as well too. So there you have it for today. We've looked a little bit at Crossroads Reentry Ministries here in DVD number 1, or part 1 of sobriety. We looked at the introduction to me, introduction to Crossroads Reentry Ministries. We looked at stay sober, stay out. We looked at the basic definition of alcoholic addict. We looked at gateway drugs, drinks, the frog in the pot syndrome, how the enemy works. We looked at surround ourselves with the winners, and we looked at the purpose of AANA. I look forward to seeing you in DVD 2. And me personally, I like to close these DVDs, these videos with this. We've been blessed. Let's go be a blessing.